Hello and welcome back to Zinespiration. I'm your host, Craig, and with Ryan. And today we have Dave from Neezines. Say hello, Dave.
Hello.
All right. Thanks for joining us today, Dave. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about what you do, about your zines, about your art, about your comics. So let's start off with maybe a question like, where did you discover zines, or what your
Sure.
introduction to zines?
Okay. The first zines that I ever saw were uh, punk rock fanzines. When I was in high school, around the time I got my driver's license, and I was able to get myself to record stores. I guess it's the first time I ever saw a zine. I was somewhat aware of what a zine is because Thrasher magazine had a column called Zine Thing where they would review zines and show them. So the first time I saw one, I was like, "Oh, that's a zine," and I bought it immediately and was just really taken with the notion of this handmade publication that this person made. And there's no rules, there's drawings in the margins, and it's like just kind of thrown together. And I was just immediately like, yeah, that's what I'm into. I want to do this.
Cool. Through the skateboard culture. That's very cool.
Yeah, skateboarding, punk. The first zine I ever worked on, so my friends I skated with in high school, one day I was like, hey, I'm gonna make a skate zine. Do you want to make something for it? And I was just like, no, man, I'm gonna be on the staff. Let's do it. We're making a zine together now. And it became like a bunch of our friends got into it, and it was like we would all make the zine physically together. It was like a hangout thing. Like, let's all meet at this person's house.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna make the next issue of our zine in real time together.
Cool.
And then we'd all go together to like try to steal the copies or whatever. And
Well, you're sitting in front of what looks like a large comic book collection.
it's not large.
No, it's just it looks.
I work as a maintenance guy, and a tenant in one of the buildings that I serve was throwing away this rack from their office that had like brochures and stuff in it. And they're like, hey, can you get rid of this? And I was like, yeah, I can definitely get rid of that. And so, I don't have a spinner rack, but I have this thing. So.
Wow.
So you're obviously very influenced by comic books and having read through this several times, and also your other zines. Let's talk about some of your inspiration. So what I initially picked up on is there's a lot of Jack Kirby vibe going on in here. And I see a lot of like 80s inspiration. So universe, definitely on the toys and stuff that you show in here. Looks like some, Kenner Star Wars, things like that.
A lot of my work, or at least a lot of my current recent work, has a lot to do with like nostalgia and wonder and comics that I love from when I was a kid, D&D and action figures and stuff like that. I think that for the Gorgonessa comic, for however many issues I'm going to do, it's definitely like a love letter to early 80s Marvel comics, Dungeons and Dragons art, action figures from the late 70s, early 80s, stuff from when I was a kid, and just things that have really informed the way I think about art from like a really young age. And it's stuff that, I haven't thought about for a long time that is now sort of seems ripe for mining for inspiration.
Does that include skate graphics?
Yeah, skate graphics are in there for sure. I kind of feel like skate graphics were what I was mining for inspiration maybe like 10 years ago. And now it's more like comics and stuff, but it's a really similar aesthetic, right? It's still that kind of cartoon line, brush inking, flat layers of color with trapping line.
Yeah.
It all kind of goes hand in hand.
So there's a direct correlation between zines, punk culture, rock and roll, skateboarding. Have you thought about doing something that kind of combines all of it together into one zine?
Yeah, maybe. I know. I mean, I used to. So, I did a zine for a long time when I was younger. When I was in college, maybe like 91 to 96, and it mostly revolved around punk music, and specifically related to like bands I was in and like tour diaries and bands we played with and that kind of stuff. So, I feel like I have addressed that in the zine world before, but I mean, it's possible, you know. I'm focusing on this sort of like fantasy monster comic for now, and then when it's done, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I am definitely going to do something totally different. You know, something more rooted in like real life and real things.
And you're working on the next Gorgonessa right now, which is pretty exciting. You've shown like little snippets on your Instagram. We'll post your Instagram down below so people can follow you. What's next for Gorgonessa? What can we expect to see?
So I don't know. I think it's a 4-issue. At least this first chapter is like a 4-issue story arc. So now I'm doing this kind of larger story in 4 chapters. And I'm just really trying to hit on aspects of what I like about like hero comics and like I don't know, like an adventure quest, you know. So it's like, what are the tropes of that? You know, like Gorgonessa's the hero and there's a villain. And so as I move forward with it, I kind of want to like play off those ideas where like, you know, maybe the hero makes an ally and the villain like enslaves, you know, like an army, and there's a big conflict. It's I mean, I know what it's going to be, but you know, I'm not going to tell you, right? No spoilers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But you know, it'll be fun. It'll be really psychedelic. It's a no words comic. It's a narrative without dialogue or exposition. So it's just really exploring storytelling, totally visually, monsters fighting, magic happening. You know, it'll be cool.
That's one of the things I really liked when I first read Gorgonessa Zero, was that it's a wordless comic. I mean, there's a couple word balloons in there that have little pictures in them to kind of help move the story along. But I love that you can just visually tell the story without dialogue and have it easily come across to the reader. That's really difficult to do.
Thanks. You know, it's kind of like I've been making zines for a long time. You know, I have an art degree. I've had art shows. I've worked as an illustrator or designer from time to time, but like I've never tried to make a comic until recently. And I love comics, so it seems kind of weird. So as I'm trying to figure out how to make comics, I'm trying to work within like limitations that will ensure like completion, or you know, that I'll actually like get through it. And one of the things that I thought I should try is to just do it without narration, without words, because if I could do that, if I could successfully push the story along without talking about it, then through that exercise, I feel like I could really learn how to build a page and how to do the pacing and set the narrative. And then once I complete this project, I feel like then I'll be ready to be like, all right, now I'm going to write a story. I'll make a comic that has lettering, you know.
So I want to know a little bit about your process, about when you or how you work. Are you morning or evening, or like how do you sort of sit down to do the work?
Sure. So you know, I mean, I work a 40-hour week job. I will take my stuff with me because I have an hour lunch, and I'll get whatever I can done in that time. Maybe it's a panel, maybe it's thumbnailing out a page or two. Maybe it's just like sketching a character or whatever, you know, something. I use that hour every day to do something. And then, you know, in the evening, I mean, you know, I'm married. I'm a step parent. Like family time is very important to me. But, you know, there's those times where like everyone's doing their own thing. You know, the kid's playing a video game, mom's reading, whatever. So I draw during that time, and I don't know, like 5 days a week, I'm probably only getting in like 2-3 hours of work time. And on the weekend, maybe I'll get in like a 4-hour day and a 6-hour day. I mean, it's totally random. Sometimes I'll just set my alarm and get up at like 5 a.m. so I can work on it for a while. Sometimes I'll stay up all night. You know what I mean? It's just like wherever I can squeeze it in, or like whenever I feel like the hour here and the 20 minutes there have yielded enough sketch information for me to like get into it, then that'll be the day where it's like, all right, screw it. I'm going to stay up till 4. You know what I mean? Like you shoehorn it in where you can, you know?
Yeah. And did you learn that, or did you hear someone talk about that before? Or
you just figure it out. Like, you know, as your life changes, as you get older, as you kind of like reprioritize how you do things, you just kind of figure out how to do it.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like I get up early in the morning to pursue things that I enjoy, my writing and, you know, reading and things like that, and also making little reviews for the zines, and I do that purely because So by the time my family wake up at 7, 8 o'clock, then I have sort of my family time devoted, and I've been able to pursue the things that I enjoy and want to get finished and want to get done and want to get into. You started with making some zines with friends and that. Do you still make zines with friends now? Do you have any friends around you that are into zines or?
I have some friends here in Portland that are into making zines and are into making comics, and specifically like one like pretty close knit group of people that includes my brother. We are allegedly making some kind of anthology together, but we'll see. I hope it happens. The great bunch of guys, all really good artists, rad shit. We'll see if anybody else makes anything.
Yeah. What other projects do you do aside from zines? Do you do like one-piece artwork and things like that?
Oh, well, I'll get the occasional commission. Like, I've got a commission I need to work on right now. That's what I'll be doing the next couple days. I have a lot of friends who want to do like art shows together. So, stuff like that'll come up. Like actually right before, the pandemic broke out, I had an art show scheduled at a restaurant somewhere, and I was like getting ready for that. And then I was just like, oh, everything's off.
Yeah.
But now I've got all this stuff I made for that can be like a new zine, So while I'm working on my comic, I'm also just always kind of sketching, because I also like to make more of like a junk drawer zine on the side that's just kind of like ideas, sketches, just kind of fun stuff.
Very cool.
Do you remember the first comic you ever got?
The first comic I ever got? Dude, that's a good question. I do, actually. I can't remember the exact issue number, but I believe, Ryan, that it's Incredible Hulk Annual number 7, I think.
Okay.
And, I was like 3 years old, and my mom bought it for me at like an antique mall, and it was missing the cover, so it's probably like back in the days of like, newsstand, pull the cover off, send it back to you. And I couldn't read yet, but I can remember every panel of that motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like I bought it, I rebought it a few years ago, and then I lost it. Maybe I lent it to somebody. I don't know. But it's when I opened it up, like my mind was blown, because it's just like I knew every passage of it, And it's a cool comic. Like it's a Marvel annual from like the 70s, so it's like it really delivers. You know what I mean? It's just like a single issue story. I think John Byrne does the artwork. It might even be inked by Terry Austin. Iceman and the Angel are in it, and they like fight a Sentinel on the moon or something. Like it's a really weird Hulk comic, and it's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do remember it, and it made like a big impression on me.
John Byrne was my favorite as a kid.
Yeah, me too.
Because I was a Superman fan, and so he had that run on Superman that was just incredible. But I came into it right at the end. I don't remember the first comic I ever got, but the first one I ever bought with my own like allowance money was Superman 22. It's the one where he kills the Phantom Zone villains at the end. It's got an all green cover. Anyway, I had I had enough money to pick between that or the Spider-Man where Spider-Man marries Mary Jane, and I picked the Superman.
Good choice.
Yeah, Superman kid.
Wedding issue is probably not gonna be that tight, man. It's not. I've never seen. Guessing. I mean, my wedding was super tight, but Spider-Man's wedding.
I don't remember any of the kids on the playground going, "Oh, did you see Spider-Man's wedding?"
Yeah,
like I don't care.
Totally, that's not what you want. It's almost like something like that exists, almost like because someone in the office is like, well, they have to get married eventually,
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to happen in the comic, It could like one comic of Spider-Man fighting somebody could end with like a word balloon that's like, oh my god, I have to get married tomorrow. And then the next one can start with a word balloon of like, well, that was a cool wedding, but now I have to go fight the Scorpion. You know what I mean? You don't have to know that.
Yeah.
Like we're adults, we have fun going to weddings. 10-year-old boys and girls don't want to read about a fucking wedding in a comic book. Like, it's silly.
I hope when I grow up I can be like Spider-Man and get married.
Yeah, I did.
Do you have like a Zinespiration? Do you have somebody that maybe that started the whole thing, or maybe that you really dig their work, maybe even currently?
I mean, a lot over the years. I'll tell you about my all-time favorite zine, I guess. It's called Crap Hound. Have you ever seen it?
No, I don't know that
It's
one.
a clip art zine. It's a like a research project. Each issue has like 1 to 4 themes, and it's just this exhaustive collection of images. Here, can you see this?
Yeah,
Okay.
very cool.
So it's like, this one is what? Hands, hearts, and eyes. And it's just these crazy packed layouts of just, you know, just hunting for clip art images of stuff fitting, the topic. And every issue has these editorials about like fair use of clip art and stuff, and it's I don't know, it's pretty cool. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
still it's the kind of zine where sometimes there's like 8 years between issues, so like he could very well still be making it. But I love it, and one thing I've always wanted to do is I've always wanted to make a zine that's kind of like an homage to this, where I draw all the images, just like pick a couple themes and just draw, and make these crazy packed layouts like this.
Yeah.
Since you were kind of doing that with the Neezine,
Yeah,
this one here's got that feel to it.
Away with it. Yeah, that's definitely like a big inspiration for how I'm doing it. But I kind of, at some point, I want to go like full bore on that. Like 40 large, just overwhelming amount of information.
What I like just from the sample that you showed, it looks like something you could pick up every couple of days and find something new that you didn't see before. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, super fun to flip through.
Yeah, a lot of reread value on that.
Yeah, I guess another zine that I remember, because I was kind of thinking about kind of stuff you guys might ask me, and I was trying to think back to like zines I remember from when I was younger, and I know that you mentioned Comet Bus in an earlier episode, and there's a zine from that time that's really similar that I really loved called Dishwasher, where the writer did kind of the same thing. It's similar kind of like Kerouac bum around the country thing, but he would go to a city and like stay with punk people he knew or whatever, live there for like a month and get a job as a dishwasher. And the idea was that he was going to try to wash dishes in all 48 continents of the United States. And it was cool because it was like, pretty standard like punk travel zine. I went to this show, we saw Jawbreaker or whoever last night, but then there'd be all this like technical data about like the dishwashing setup in the kitchen in the town.
Wow.
Like it was a really neat zine. It was really cool. Yeah.
Wow, yeah. I think that's what's really cool about like the zine medium is you can have a zine about absolutely anything, and sometimes the more detail it is about the weirdest thing, the cooler it is.
Totally. Yeah, I agree.
Like I have even one, for example, one that pops into the top of my head is I've got this zine on like snow globes. It's a zine about this guy that goes around stealing snow globes. I think it's by Ken or no, I can't find it fast enough. But it's about snow globes, and it's just this weird, wacky zine about like all these snow globes that he's stolen and like got as presents and gifts and during the period of time. It's crazy.
That's so cool. It's it could be anything, right?
Do you have a zine that you've like a zine idea that you've thought of that you haven't done before, or maybe a collab that you'd really love to do?
At some point soon, I would like to collaborate with a writer and do a comic that way. Or you know what, I would love to do like a totally traditional comic where like somebody pencils it and somebody inks it and somebody colors it. I think that'd be a fun exercise. Like I would love to ink somebody's pencil art or color somebody else's inks or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. Like I would love, actually I think it'd be fun to get like, you get enough people together to fill all those roles, and then you each do one and send it off to the next person, so like so if like it was us, like I would write a story and send it to you and you would pencil it, and then Ryan would ink it and he would pencil something and send it to you, and you know what I mean, like and then you kind of put them all together and you see how each person wrote, conceived the art, finished the art. I think that'd be really fun. Even if you didn't show it to anybody, just for your own personal kind of growth as a maker, that'd be a cool exercise.
Reminds me of the way Eastman and Laird did the early Ninja Turtle stuff, where from page to page, it would be, you know, one person was drawing it, the other person was inking it. So
Yeah, I think
that
that's
would be
there's a lot of room there for something really magical to happen instead of like, you know, there's decades and decades of people making like total horseshit comics that way. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be that way. Like the team effort could be like something really rad.
Mm.
yeah. Well, I don't buy a whole lot of new like superhero comics or anything like that anymore, just because I don't find there's much that really grabs my attention. Like when I buy a comic, I go straight to the indie section, and I want to see, you know, the black and white stuff, and I want to see, you know, I think I sent you a link once to Alterna Comics.
Oh yeah.
They're printing on newsprint, and their price is like $1.50 a comic, and I'm like, oh yeah, this reminds me of my youth. It smells like comics, feels like comics, and it looks like, you know, it's not super high detailed art. It looks like old comic book art, like the old pop style stuff. And I still get off on it. It's really cool. But you know, I'll go over and I'll flip over an X-Men book or a Justice League book, and the first thing I see is there's no backgrounds in any of these images. It's just, you know, figure art talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, and it's like, where did the detail go?
No, yeah, it's not. It's a real shame. It's a real shame what's going on in most mainstream comics. Obviously, like all the bigger publishers will have their moments where they do something cool a couple times a year, but yeah, it's mostly trash.
Yeah.
That's all right, because you know there's no shortage of really great underground and indie comics. You know what I mean? Like we won't have time to read them all before we die. So you know what? If the X-Men isn't good anymore, so be it.
What do you think the future of zines is?
I mean, I don't know. You know, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that like Xerox zines were still a thing. So that's awesome. So you
Yeah.
know, think that I don't know. I think that the future of zines is bright, man. Like it's as long as there's always going to be a way for people to access, you know, DIY printing. There's going to be zines, and yeah, that's my take on that. I'm stoked that zines have like survived and thrived the way they have. I'm not really a big screen guy. You know, I think Instagram I think is fun and it's definitely a good way to promote what I'm doing and it's kind of social or whatever. But like I was never like a big blogger. You know, I had a Tumblr page, but I didn't really maintain it because nobody ever fucking looks at it. Like I just zine. I don't know. I've always been a big fan of like you make a thing and you've got the actual thing. It's not just you know I don't know, virtual.
What aspect of making the zine do you enjoy? Like
It's all I don't know, building the pages, I guess. So if it's not, you know, so if it's a comic, obviously it's like drawing, and then if it's more of like a junk drawer art zine, I mean, I guess those are the two kind of zines I make these days. You got junk drawer and comic, and if it's the junk drawer, I enjoy the assembling. I mean, like I have a scanner. I'm actually like really good at using Photoshop, but I don't fucking do it that way. I go to like a copy shop with all my drawings and make the same image, like, you know, in like 20 different sizes, and then cut them all out and bring them home and like figure out what's going to work on the page. Because I grew up doing it that way, and I just think it's more fun. I like it better. Cool. It's dumb. Like I could actually get exactly what I want if I did it the other way, but I just rather do it that way.
Yeah, it's nice having like some real limitations on the way you have to put it together. It's like, yeah, maybe like, because the way I do it is I just do like written style zines, and but I could probably find out how to like set it on a page and get it sort of page set and, you know, print it out that way. But instead I just I do it on like a Word doc, and then I just have to I put the margins in, so it just prints down the center of a page, or I just sort of get the margin size right, and then I print it, and then I cut it, and then glue it onto a separate master sort of thing. And it's fun having that sort of limitation where it's like, oh, how am I going to put this on, and how am I going to do that? And
you know, otherwise you might change your mind like eternally.
Pretty much everything I do goes through Photoshop at one point or another, whether it's just like the formatting before it gets printed into a zine or not. But about this time last year, I did one that was just draw it out on paper, divide it into the fours, and everything was done by hand. It was actually one of the most enjoyable zines I've ever made because it felt so old school. It reminded me of back when I was a teenager, doing it all by hand, taking it to the photocopier. Maybe that photo that I cut and pasted in ain't gonna turn out because I don't know shit about what I'm doing, right? And maybe it looks great and maybe it looks like crap, but it's fun to do.
Yeah, and it was probably, let me ask you this: was it a good exercise for you? Like after doing one that way, the next time you went back into Photoshop, did you kind of feel like you had some kind of like a fresh perspective from doing it
Yeah.
analog?
Yeah, well, I'm always trying to do a different style here and there, like always trying to, what haven't I done just to see if I can do it. And part of the process for me is getting through the process, right? So finding a new challenge, saying, I think I can do this, doing it, and whether or not it's any good doesn't always need to matter. Just the fact that I got from point A to point B. I mean, it has to be good. Like I have to be happy with it at the end.
Right.
I'm not gonna expect someone to buy it from me if it's not something I would want to look at. But when I do a new style, I don't necessarily expect it to be on par with stuff that I've done previously, that I know how to do well.
Do you try many different styles, or?
I definitely do try other styles, and they always end up just looking like my shit, which is good. That's what I want. I guess to your point, I think it's really important to try other styles, and I think that you should never be afraid to try something that is totally different from what you do, because by the time you're done with it, it's just gonna look like your shit, And hopefully,
Yeah, I noticed something you did actually. You did something a couple of weeks ago with a record cover. Something I really I like those women with the circular heads. You did this. I think it was a record cover.
Okay. You're
And it was
talking
two women sitting next to each other, or sitting sort of
With
facing each other.
the concentric circle thing.
That was cool.
This image.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah, I love that.
this is it's this image. Whatever it means in the story, whatever. It's the cover of a 7-inch by a punk band called Universal Order of Armageddon from like the early 90s. And it was one of my favorite records at that time. And I knew that I wanted to like bite the cover in this comic for this like transformation sequence I was going to do. So I contacted the singer on Instagram because they have a page for their band, even though they're not a band anymore. And long story short, I was like, do you mind if I ape that 7-inch cover in my comic? It's about like a monster witch, and they were like, yeah, sure, go for it. So, but yeah,
Cool.
I borrow from stuff. There's definitely like in all my comics, there's at least like 2 panels that are just swipes from some other comic. Like you just take the pose, from something else and just draw your character on it. Like I definitely do that stuff. I use photo reference. I'll try to draw like this artist or that artist. And like I said, like by the time you're done with it, it's yours, Unless like you don't care about making it yours, if you're really just trying to copy something. Either by the time it's done, it doesn't resemble the original thing, or it's clearly an homage to the original thing. That's like a recognizable, like, oh, that's cool. I like that too. He likes that,
Cool.
That's a thing that I think that's a thing you want to think about, whether you're a writer, doodler, painter, interpretive dancer, whatever. Like you have
musician.
You've got to think about what you're doing within the context of like what's come before. If you're serious,
I guess just finally, like, do you have any maybe advice for any young comic artists or young zinesters or someone that's really looking to get into it?
Just don't be afraid to like play around with stuff. Don't ever let what you're doing become like too precious. Like really be interested in fucking up what you're doing and then going back into it. And I would say like really engage with materials. Really think about like paper, like especially for like the finished product. Like if you're doing like a Xerox zine, you've already got it like set like what the printing quality is going to be. So like what can you do to like augment that? You can try different paper weights, textures, colors. Like really think about the end result of what you're doing, and like don't be afraid to like go and like make test runs of your shit before you like put it out, and like just really think editorial about your thing, and have fun and take chances and just make some cool shit, man.
All right. Well, thanks
All right.
again. And this is where we fade out.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.